Hello, friends. Welcome. Here we are discussing real stories told by real people. Today we have a story about a man who accidentally found his wife's correspondence with another man. Let's see what happens. When Michael Foster, returned home that late evening, a warm light was already shining in the house, making its way through the translucent curtains. I'm completely exhausted from a difficult week at work. I imagined sitting in a comfortable chair and relaxing, but at home I was in for a surprise. Passing by the kitchen, I saw Sarah, my wife. She was sitting behind an island in the kitchen. Her long blonde hair was neatly styled, and she looked incredibly elegant even in her homemade outfit, a light silk blouse and black leggings. She had a glass of red wine in her hand, which she was twirling, looking at the play of light in the liquid. "Hi, honey," I said, taking off my jacket and hanging it on the back of a chair next to the door. "Oh, Michael, Mom wants to greet you. I'm putting you on speaker," she replied, tapping on her phone screen. Sarah had always been gentle and cheerful, but now her voice sounded a little strained. My mother, Alice, was a strong and determined woman with short cropped silver hair and piercing blue eyes. She always said what she thought, and her advice, although it sometimes seemed intrusive, always came from caring about us. "Hi, Michael. How's my beloved son-in-law doing?" Mom's cheerful voice came from the speaker. "It's fine, Mom. You know that I'm your only son-in-law, so there's no competition," I replied with a smile, walking up to Sarah and putting my arm around her shoulders. "I know, but you'd be my favorite anyway," she said, and I felt Sarah stiffen a little under my hand. "Thanks, Mom. I love you too. How's Dad?" "Oh, he's here, watching some kind of show about marriage where a husband and wife talk about how to build trust in a relationship." Alice sighed thoughtfully. "You know, they exchange mobile phones every week to check messages and calls. It's their way of proving that they have no secrets from each other." "An interesting idea," I said, glancing at Sarah. Her face paled instantly. "Mom, I think this is a great idea. Sarah and I will start doing that too." Sarah looked at me quickly, her eyes wide in horror. She tried to say something, but instead just took a deep breath. "Well, I'll leave you to it," Alice said quickly. "Give my love to Dad. See you soon." As soon as the conversation ended, I said softly, "What do you say to that, Sarah?" She turned away, her gaze full of anxiety. This moment turned out to be the beginning of a conversation that could change our entire future. After talking to my mom, Alice, the evening took an unexpected turn. Sarah, still tensely holding a glass of wine in her hands, sat across from me, clearly worried. "Well, Michael, do you really want this?" "What is it?" she asked, trying to remain calm. "Yes, Sarah, I think it might be useful. Transparency is an important aspect of trust," I replied, trying to speak softly but insistently. I handed her my phone. "Here, you can start with me." She took my phone, but was in no hurry to check anything. Instead, she slowly placed it on the table. "Michael, I really don't think this is necessary. I trust you," she said, avoiding my gaze. "And I want you to trust me as much as I trust you," I insisted, putting my hand behind her phone. "Can you give me yours now?" With some reluctance, Sarah handed me her phone. Her hands were shaking slightly when I took the device. She looked at me with anxious expectation, as if she was waiting for an invisible blow. When I opened her phone, I noticed that it was not password protected. It was strange, considering her usual caution. I started going through the list of her messages. Most of them were banal messages from friends, colleagues, but one correspondence stood out. The name Jake flashed several times. I opened the dialogue. The texts were rife with flirtation and warmth, which she rarely showed even to me lately. "I miss you. When will I see you again?" Those words hurt me more deeply than I expected. "Michael, please." She started, but I interrupted her when I saw the photos. One of the pictures showed Jake, tall, with dark hair and a confident smile, hugging my wife. There were more intimate moments in other photos that I didn't even want to admit existed. "Sarah, who is Jake? Why are you sending him such messages?" My voice was shaking with anger and betrayal. Sarah tried to take the phone back, but I backed away. "You have to explain this to me," I insisted, holding the phone away from her. She was looking at me, her eyes were full of tears. "Michael, is this?" She couldn't find the words, but they were not needed. Everything was clear to me anyway. In the depths of the night, after the truth about Sarah's betrayal became clear, the silence in the house turned out to be muffling. Sarah, sitting on the couch, hugged her knees, rocking back and forth. Her eyes were full of tears, which she no longer tried to hold back. I was standing in front of her with my phone on the table. Pain and betrayal filled every corner of the room. Why did you do that, Sarah? My voice was shaking, not with anger, but with shattered hopes and pain. Sarah looked up, her face scared with guilt. Michael, I don't know. I'm so sorry. I really didn't want it to turn out like this. Jake, he just happened to show up in my life. We started chatting at work, and it all seemed harmless. Harmless. I interrupted, picking up her phone and waving it in front of her face. These messages, photos. It doesn't look like harmless, Sarah. I know. It got out of control. I didn't expect to get so involved in this. She tried to approach me, but I backed away. What now? Do you think we'll just forget about it and continue as if nothing had happened? I could hear the wariness in my voice. I do not know, Michael. I want to fix this, if you give me a chance. Her voice was barely audible, broken. Fix it. How are you going to fix the betrayal, Sarah? She was silent, tears rolling down her cheeks, each of which seemed to reflect the broken parts of our marriage. I felt my heart sinking in despair. At that moment, I realized that it was necessary to act. I need to know more about Jake. I picked up the phone and dialed the number of my brother, Tom, who worked at the police department. Hi, Tom. I need your help. Can you check one number for me? I think this man is involved in. I hesitated, not wanting to admit even to my brother what was happening. Of course, Michael. Just give me the number. Tom was brief and businesslike. After I provided the information, Tom promised to contact me as soon as he found out something. After hanging up, I turned to Sarah, who was still waiting for me to say something. Noah was firm and unshakable. While Sarah was packing her things upstairs, I stood at the window in the living room, looking out into the darkness of the night. Feelings were raging in my heart. Anger, frustration, and despite everything, a sense of loss. Sarah wasn't just my wife. She was my best friend, a partner with whom I shared every aspect of my life. But now it all seemed like an illusion. Soon my phone rang. It was Tom, my brother. Michael, I checked the number. It belongs to David James, he began. I found his home address and even found out that he has a spouse. A spouse. My surprise turned to determination. Thanks, Tom. This is important information. Are you sure you want to keep doing this? Maybe it's better to leave it as it is. Tom was careful, knowing how painful it could be. I have to do this, Tom. I need to know everything. After we hung up, I thought about my next steps. Sarah walked slowly down the stairs, carrying a suitcase. Miko, she began, but I raised my hand to stop her. Uber should be here in a couple of minutes. I ordered it for you. My tone was resolute and calm, even though everything was boiling inside. Michael, I'm really sorry. Her voice was trembling. I know, I said shortly. But now is not the time to talk. We both need space and time. When the car pulled up to the house, Sarah picked up her suitcase and went to the door. She turned around to look at me again, but I couldn't look at her anymore. Instead, I watched out the window as she got into the car and drove off into the night. When the car was out of sight, I took out my phone and dialed the home number that Tom had given me. A woman answered me. Hello, can I talk to David James? I asked, trying to stay calm. This is his wife. Who's calling? Her voice was careful. My name is Michael Foster. I'm sorry for the late call, but I think we have a serious conversation. My wife and your husband. So began a conversation that could change not only my fate, but also the fate of another family. While I was talking to her, a plan for the next steps was already spinning in my head, including a meeting with a lawyer the next morning. After all that had happened, I knew there was a long way to go. The next morning, the house felt unusually empty and quiet. All that was left of Sarah was the echo of her footsteps retreating into the night. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee and going through the documents that would need to be provided to a lawyer. While I was preparing for the meeting, my phone rang again. Mitchell Foster, I replied. Hello, Michael. This is Elizabeth James. We talked last night. Her voice sounded tired but determined. Yes, Elizabeth. Thanks for calling me back. How are you feeling? Honestly, I asked, stunned. You mentioned the evidence. Can we meet? She continued. Of course. Is it convenient for you to meet at the cafe at the entrance to the park today? It's quiet and there aren't many people there. Great, will we meet at 5 in the evening? 5 would be great. Folding the phone, I continued to prepare. The mood was tense, but deep down I felt relieved. Sarah had already left, and maybe this was a chance to start all over again. At a meeting in a cab, I saw Elizabeth, a strong and restrained woman. Her dark hair was neatly styled, and there was determination in her eyes. Mikkel, thank you for agreeing to meet, she said, holding out her hand to me. I think we're both in a difficult situation, and maybe we can help each other. I replied, taking her hand. We ordered coffee and I started sharing the details. Here are the texts of messages between Sarah and your husband, as well as photos. I think that's all you need to know. Elizabeth picked up the phone, her face impassive as she scanned the messages. After a long silence, she looked up at me. I do not know how to tell you this, Michael, but this is the second time David has done something like this. I think it's time to make decisions. Her voice faltered. I'm thinking about getting a divorce, too. I said, it's hard, but maybe the best thing we can do for ourselves. You're right, and thank you. I would never have known the truth without your call. Maybe we could stick together in this process. Support each other. I think that would be wise. I agreed. At that moment, despite all the difficulties, it seemed that a new path loomed on the horizon. There were many unknowns ahead, but also the opportunity for a new beginning based on sincerity and support. Elizabeth and I parted ways, agreeing to stay in touch and help each other through the upcoming difficulties. As I walked back to the car, I felt some of the happiness go away, giving way to a new goal, recovery, and maybe someday, new beginnings. And so we come to the end of this story. Please write your opinion in the comments. We will be interested to know it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like it if you liked it. We wish you good luck.